All right, thank you for joining us here at Restaurantopia. We got another hot topic for you today. We've been talking about in the last couple episodes on generational research, and this week we're going to be talking about Gen Z, or the iGen. So really excited about it because this is now becoming an emerging generation in the workforce and also as consumers, and is going to be very important to the restaurant business in general. So I'm excited to get going on the topic. As far as time frames, obviously when you talk about generations, you got to talk about the ages. So you're looking at Gen Z being age 22 to 7 years old. So you've got a lower end of that's probably not as impactful to the restaurant business.
But they're all consumers. I mean,
very fair, yeah.
I mean, unless you have a lot of alcohol sales, like that's going to be a lot of people in your restaurant. Their flavor profiles, the things that they're looking for, and their taste, it's going to be important.
Yeah, and we both have kids. I have a 6-year-old daughter.
I have an 8-year-old.
You have an 8-year-old son, so we're right there. Like I'm not numb to believe that they're not helping us make decisions and where we're going to spend our money.
Oh, I'll tell you what. My son, he hears a commercial from one of the national chains, and when we drive by that place, whether it's Arby's, where's the meat, or whatever their catchphrase is, or he's even talking about Dairy Queen now, and obviously we'd say we only go to local independents in this family, but but
there's a rule.
There's an absolute hard line rule, but the fact that marketing is resonating with an 8-year-old, it's effective, and don't kid yourself that it's not.
No, absolutely, no question. So that's the age range we're dealing with, and all the way up to 22 years old, which they're getting ready to graduate college, if not graduated from college, going into trying to figure out careers and what they're going to do with their life. What I mean? So it's important to look at aspects of how they are as consumers in your restaurant, but also how they're going to work in your restaurants as well as time goes on. So.
I think one thing interesting with this generation that we're talking about today is that they also have disposable income. Their parents are, typically, employed, and maybe in past generations at this time in their lives, the parents didn't have as much disposable income. But now you're really seeing parents that are doing quite well.
Sure. Yeah. No question. Yeah, and it depends on geographics and where you're at. But
sure.
For the most part, I would tell you as a general rule, like this population, they've got money to spend. No question. So if they're walking home from school and they want to grab a milkshake or doing whatever it is, like they're gonna spend that money somewhere. And actually, as I was doing my research, I read a stat that for every $5 Gen Z spends, $1 is spent towards food. So you look at that, so that's 20% of their income, or excuse me, the outgoing money, and you still have it, and we talk about 7 years old to 22, but you still got let's say 14, 15 to 22.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That maybe there's a portion that's on allowances, that they've got money coming in that way that are a little younger, but then you've got ones that are actually potentially working in your restaurants, earning money, and then spending it, and how does that all tie together, and what do we do?
And when the parents are working, a lot of those kids are making the food choices.
Sure.
Whether they're having, they're asking mom and dad to bring home food for dinner if you had a fast casual takeout place, or, they're having food delivered to the house.
Yeah. And what was it, Domino's, I think, that did the marketing on the everybody in the family wants pizza, and then the one wants salads.
Yeah.
A salad or something, like the daughter wants a salad or whatever, and then the pizza spoiler. I can't remember the term they used, but it was like so, and they're like, oh, we have salads too for that person. What I mean? So all those things like that marketing is all geared because that's money being spent. No question.
And there's there's a limited amount of food dollars that people are going to spend, but you can't get back last Tuesday's takeout if you're not trying to communicate with that audience. You're not trying to get in touch with them and market to them.
Yeah, no question, absolutely. A couple of stats on Gen Z, because it's not as we talked about millennials in a prior episode, but and I think people are more conscious of that, and I think sometimes when you look at 22 years old, we're probably still calling those people millennials, 21, 20,
correct,
19,
yeah.
The millennial term really just jumped
Well, and it's that whole thing where they've been vilified too.
Sure.
And we touched base on that in the episode on millennials. It's like how foolish that is for us as the older generation, and them to paint them with that brush that's just, it's not accurate. One, but two, it's too complex of an issue to kind of use a stereotype and just put them in one box.
Yeah, but because there's so much emphasis put on that millennial, I wanted to go through a little bit more some stats on Gen Z and statistics that'll give us an idea of like where their mind's at, where they're going, in some of the survey information. So, one thing they talk about is Gen Z is they're talking about it being the most radically diverse generation we've ever seen. So to the point where studies are saying that they're so diverse, this generation, that the only time that they notice diversity is when there's a lack of it. Okay, so you think about two bald white guys sitting here making a podcast. That's weird. They're like two white people. They're like you
have a beard and I don't.
Oh,
so that's
fair.
probably not the same thing.
I look a little more hipster, but
that's true.
But no, that there's some truth to that they've not grown up in with the segregation or all the other things that happened in the past. There's much more acceptance to all different walks of life and whether it be sexuality or race or nationality or whatever it is. Like there's a lot of acceptance to that, to the point where when there's lack of it, that's when they actually take notice of it. So I thought that was an interesting thing.
I think, not to interrupt you, but I think the technology and the way we've looked at generations in the past, I think is going to shrink down quite a bit too.
Oh, absolutely. Well, no, yeah, I think that generations being a 20-year window, I totally agree with you. Like, it's going to come to a point where you're going to have generation shifts because of technology and the way things change. I mean, potentially every 10 years, maybe even sooner.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about in the millennials, there may be 4 or 5 segments of millennials, within that 20-some year gap. But like, I think the actual qualifications of what's that generation, like, I don't know what they're going to call it. If generation, it tends to mean 20 years, or people think a generation is 20 years, but it's going to become shorter and shorter, due to technology, really.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about media consumption. I read some statistics on millennials versus Gen Z and media consumption, and in this, I wanted to put this in there because it really resonated with me. In millennials, they're talking about hours per week spent on devices and technology, or for media, essentially, and they said that millennials are on a desktop. Okay, so over 16 hours a week.
Really, a desktop?
A desktop.
Okay.
So obviously these people, this is people that work in an office.
Yeah.
I mean, so
okay.
I can understand that. They're on a mobile device for almost 15 hours a week on a mobile device, and they're in front of the TV almost 15 hours a week.
Okay.
As much as it was the almost exact number, mobile to TV. Okay. And that's for millennials. Okay.
And that includes Netflix and stuff like that. Like
I'm assuming. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're sitting at home on the couch watching a TV, I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. When they talk about Gen Z, the number one is actually mobile. Okay, at just over 15 hours. TV coming in second at 13, and then laptops at 10. Laptop didn't even make the top 3 for millennials, but so it's mobile, TV, laptop. Again, TV probably being Hulu, Netflix. They're
on-demand content. And again, that's in both of these two generations. I think that's the dynamic shift where again, we can talk about all these streaming platforms, but they have trained us all up to be like, oh, I'm going to binge a season versus I'm going to wait for a week to go by and a week to go by, and then I'm going to be like, this is going to be part of my routine. And no longer. It's I'm going to watch 25 episodes in 3 days.
Yeah, and when you're in a situation that you're watching a TV, and let's say you're not on a streaming format, you're actually watching something recorded, or is TiVo? Is that, can I still say TiVo?
I don't think you can.
I don't know. Is that
I think DVR. I think
DVR
is
that what it is? DVR.
Yeah.
Yeah, and TiVo is not a sponsor of this podcast.
No.
It
still exists though. I think so.
Blockbuster. No, so but you're fast forwarding commercials, or if you're forced to have commercials, what are you doing during a commercial?
Yeah,
you're picking up your phone. You're on your phone, consuming for the 2 minutes the commercials are on your phone, whether it be social media or whatever.
I mean, God forbid you talk to someone.
Oh, forget it.
Crazy talk.
Yeah, absolutely. You can listen to a podcast. I got a couple we could recommend. But yeah, I think so. Media consumption is big on that. I think also I was reading some statistics on product selection that they actually prefer cool products over cool experiences. Okay, so now when we talked about this, I thought this was super interesting because when we talked about millennials, we talked a lot about lifestyle, experience, traveling, all those different types of things. Gen Z is actually, if you look at some of the research, is swinging back towards you know, they're it's a little bit more materialistic, not a ton, but
Okay.
coming back towards materialistic and not the cool experience as much anymore. They're saying that
That's interesting.
For Gen Z, they're saying that 60% prefer product over experience, 60% in surveys.
Wow.
And where in millennials it was 40%.
Okay.
So that's a 20% swing, you know, between those two generations right next to each other. You know, as far as cool products, I thought this was interesting too, that and millennials are doing it a little bit, but Gen Z especially, they're reviewing the heck out of things before they buy
Oh.
it. I mean, they're looking at 6 to 9 reviews of a product or service before they actually make a purchase and spend money.
And think about how that affects your restaurant. Like, you know, now you no longer have, you know, 1 or 2 review sites out there. Everything from Google to Facebook to Yelp to you know, Grubhub, everything is providing a review. And you need to cultivate and make sure that you're in touch with your audience and that the customer experience is phenomenal, because they're looking. I mean, they want to know. Then they're seeking that out.
Absolutely. No, they're seeking it out, and I think also just, you know, to take that a little bit further, like your reputation management, we'll call it. You know what I mean, and how you respond to maybe negative feedback or you know, negative reviews and positive reviews as well. But how you're handling that. You know, I think sometimes people get, you know, restaurateurs can tend to be potentially cheap in that area where you know they'll, you know, somebody has a bad experience in the restaurant, you know, they'll give them a $5 discount, or they'll offer them free dessert, or they'll, you know, they'll do things like that where, you know, what does it take and what's the impact it has on somebody to just comp the meal. You know what I mean? Like, you know, some of the things we look at, you know, we're stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. You know what I mean? I think that can have a huge impact. In fact, I was talking to a restaurateur that literally, when they have a bad experience, they actually, you know, most companies, if they were going to do something and mail out like a gift card or something like that, he literally writes a check to the person and sends it to them. A check.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, think about that. Like, he's not even saying, like, forcing you got to come back into
here.
my crappy experience. Now, this is a great restaurateur, and crappy experiences are few and far between.
No.
But I'm telling you, he literally writes a check and mails it to him. You know, that's literally...
I love that.
Think about that.
Yeah. And that's where, you know, as local independents, we need to think outside the box and not, you know, not get trapped with what the national chains do. And, like, that's a great example of a trick that, I mean, I love. That's really cool. I've never...
No, I thought it was, and I definitely wanted to share it because I feel like that's something that people aren't really thinking about. They're thinking, well, I'll give them a gift card, they'll come back. But there's sometimes where people, they're going to have that experience and they're going to choose whether it was a slower night or a bad employee or whatever happened. Like, things happen. We're all people. Stuff happens, and people are going to make decisions based on that. And they might say, you know what, hey, I'm not gonna try that again. You know what I mean? And they get the gift card. That doesn't mean anything to them. You know what I mean? But this guy's like, here's the money.
And now, you know, and we're going to have some guests on the show that are social media experts and how to handle some of these situations. We can do a deep dive into that. But, you know, one thing I want to make the point here is that everyone now has the printing press. Everyone now has the microphone. Before, you know, those platforms and the ability to stand on your soapbox and pontificate about your restaurant experience, everyone has that ability now. So, you know, when we market to people, you know, the number one person we need to market to is our customers, and making sure the best way to do that is making sure that they have an amazing customer experience, because they're gonna, you know, they want people to know that they're out to eat. They're taking pictures of their food. Things that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you know, you'd pull out like your Polaroid and like, oh, here I'm gonna take a picture of this food, and they're like, why? What are you gonna do with that?
Not happening.
No, now it's
you'd be kicked out. Get the crazy guy out of here.
I'm gonna put it on my 5 social media platforms and make sure that everyone knows I'm, you know, we're filming today here in Cleveland, Ohio at Bold, which is an amazing restaurant and great food. But I'm sure every single night here you see people with their phones out taking pictures of their food.
No, and it's actually, when you think about it, like, you know, people can get frustrated, like, oh, everybody's, you know, I gotta wait to eat, and everybody's taking pictures and all this stuff. But think about the quality in food prep and presentation it's driven into the restaurants.
Oh, for sure.
Like, you know, there's not a restaurant delivering a bad presented plate anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
no way.
And if they are, they're not gonna be around long, because that's gonna hit somewhere. You know.
No, you know, the funny thing is it's tough to take food pictures too. Like, you go on to some of these review sites and you're like, I've been to that restaurant And it's just that person's not a good picture taker. Food's tough to take a picture of sometimes. So, like, you do have to up your game and make sure that you're constantly putting out that consistent message.
Yeah, no question. And I think the other thing about that is it's risen the level on presentation for food, but also think about when you see something that looks awesome.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you want to go there, right? That presentation is not only like for one person to take a picture and it's like it's on their phone and it's not going anywhere. Like, people are seeing it, and they're going to see that and they're going to go, whoa, that's impressive. You know what I mean? So when you think about restaurant marketing, like, how do you have one item that is just over the top presentation?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In quality, but over the top, like people are going to see it and they can't not want to go get it. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. I mean,
every restaurant should have that. I mean, that should be part of the recipe.
It should, and I think one thing our friends over at Eat Local Ohio have taught us is that it's a great site if you guys want to check it out. But like, I go on to their Instagram page, and it's just it's beautiful pictures of food, and it makes you hungry. Like, even if I'm not hungry, I'm getting something for lunch. Like, I'm going to one of these local independents because it's so impressive and it's so appetizing. It makes you hungry.
Yeah. No. And I know what you're talking about. It's at Eat Local Ohio on Instagram, if I can get it out right. At Eat Local Ohio on Instagram. But awesome photography, and she's actually getting into video now, which is cool. So you're actually starting to see, like, because sometimes you can look at a photo and you're like, could it be photoshopped? Could it be doctored? Could it be filtered? Whatever. But when you're doing video, like, that's authentic. When they're
look at this.
dipping the chip.
This is not great.
This could be a lot better. This could be
a photo with some serious, Adobe Suite software would definitely, jazz this up a little bit. But
but with video, like, they're dipping the chip into the thing and the queso's falling off, and then she's eating it. Like, when you see video like that, like, that's even taking it to the next level. So check that out. I mean, if you want great content to make dining decisions, Eat Local Ohio, no question. So let's talk about Gen Z as consumers. So if you're a restaurateur, you're trying to drive traffic into your restaurant. You've got these, let's say let's call it 16 to 22-year-olds that are they're going to spend some money in restaurants. How are we doing that? So we talked about they're spending $1 for every 5. So 20% of their money is going towards food. Okay,
that's pretty good.
How do we capture that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a big deal. I think convenience is driving a ton of their decisions. Even maybe to another level of even millennials. Because they are younger, they are going to be a little more tech savvy. So, convenience, whether it's, the Uber Eats and the Postmates and the Grubhub and all those different sites, they've came out, they've hit the market. I think initially it became something that typically it's a little bit of a higher percentage to get in. You know what I mean? They're going to charge for that, and a lot of consumers. It was funny. I was talking to some people last night about this that we had over for dinner, and they didn't even realize how much they charge the restaurants for that.
Oh no,
they don't realize.
They don't. It's like when people use a credit card, they don't realize that there's a processing fee for the restaurants. Like, no, it's it's something that I think the consumer, although uneducated on it, is willing to pay for. And I've seen that. Question. I've seen that time and time again when I go into restaurants that have that mobile site and the mobile platform up, and they're like, oh, we charge $2 more for this, or $1 more for this, or $3 more, and it's just they need to capture that revenue, because I think the consumer's willing to pay for it, especially this generation where they don't have a mortgage. This is of the $5 that they're spending, the whole $5 is disposable.
Right.
This goes to my car payment.
Right. Yeah. No question. Yeah. And so the convenience is a huge factor, and I think you've got to be, if you're not looking at those types of things, you need to. Now, if you're already doing a lot of carry out or you're doing a lot of delivery, like, it might not be the best match for everybody, but if you're a restaurant, a dine-in restaurant, like, I think you really need to look at it, and you need to negotiate the best you can. But the other thing that I think that these companies are missing the boat to really go to the next level in getting into these restaurants. They're kind of like, I feel like they're kind of bullying their way in. Like, Uber Eats is coming in, it's 25, 27, 30%, whatever it is. You got to negotiate, but then also, like, be smart about it. Like, if I'm Uber Eats, well, forget Uber Eats. They're not going to do it. If I'm a restaurant, okay, and I'm using Uber Eats, there is something going in that package,
for sure,
to the customer with some sort of information, that I can get a little bit of detail that they'll bring back for something. So let me paint a picture. You get your delivery from Uber Eats from Bold Food and Drink, let's say, as we're sitting here. So you get your delivery, it comes in, you open up the bag, and there's a little postcard on it, and it's got maybe name, email, phone number, Is this your first bold food experience?
Yeah.
Why did you dine here? Just
Yeah.
getting some information, because think about how awesome it would be to understand that I'm going to spend that 30% knowing that that's probably double, maybe even triple, like what I bottom line in my restaurant.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? Like if your bottom
mean-
line is 10 or 15%, that's 30% is double, double or triple what you're actually, generating. So can you really make any money on that product? Like it's very minimal. It's a marketing effort. So why just let it go without getting some information back?
And there's and we'll talk about this in the episode on delivery services. But
I know I'm getting off topic.
No, but you're absolutely right. Like, is there an opportunity to win a $100 gift card? Is there an opportunity in that delivery package to tell them about your awesome catering services, or tell them about your holiday party services?
Right.
Like those sorts of things that introduce them to a new dish. Like, hey, I know you ordered this, but I put it in our amazing coleslaw. I want you to try it. It's new on the menu. Enjoy with a handwritten note.
Actually giving them a free item in there. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
because that. Again, it provides the personal relationship with the customer that maybe some of these technology platforms are taking out.
Right.
So the more you can, connect with that customer, the better.
Yeah, no question. And so when you talk about, as a consumer, let's talk about advertising towards that money that's going to be spent, that dollar out of every $5.
Yeah.
So where are you going to advertise that? Billboards.
Probably billboards, right?
Billboards,
and a lot of Super Bowl commercials.
Yeah, right, because you got the big budget.
Yeah.
But you're advertising, like when you think about with the media they're consuming, I think YouTube is a huge miss in most local restaurants. Like you got to get a YouTube channel and start getting savvy on that. They're saying that 50%, this is a staggering statistic, they're saying 50% of Gen Z, quote unquote, can't live without YouTube.
I would say that's absolutely true for my son.
50% can't live without YouTube. Okay?
Yeah.
So 50% of that population that's spending $1 for every $5 is on YouTube. Okay.
But they're also they're not just going there for entertainment. Like they're going there to learn how to do things. Whether it's anything. There's stuff in school that there's tutorials on. I mean, it's constant. It's an interactive platform where no longer is this generation just sitting back and consuming content. They're actually going out there looking for it.
Yeah, and it's actually the second most searched platform, behind Google.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it would probably eventually, I believe it'll probably pass Google at some point. You know what I mean? So it's huge. So get a presence on YouTube. I think as far as social media goes, like there's a huge emergence of something called TikTok. I would suggest if you're a restaurateur, get on TikTok, sign up, just start consuming it, checking it out.
Yeah.
Because there's a ton of organic reach there. And I think that as a consumer, marketing consumers and also marketing for employment, like there are some things that you can do on there that are clever that can get some things done. You know what I mean? And it's a big emerging platform.
I think, constantly trying to stay ahead of these platforms. There's a lot of noise on these platforms, but when these new platforms come out, you're maybe a big fish in a small pond. So the ability to create content, I think, is going to be king, and then the ability to put that out consistently is absolutely what you need to focus on.
Yeah, no, for sure. I want to talk about texting a little bit too. Like, do you like getting text messages?
I actually do.
You do?
I prefer that over most forms.
Do you like to be marketed to in a text message though?
It depends what it is. If I get an offer and it's something that I want,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'll give you an example. So was doing some shopping for holiday stuff, and it was Dick's Sporting Goods. They said you get 10% off if you give us your phone number, and we'll text you the offer code. So like 17 texts later, I finally get this coupon code, and it didn't work. I immediately canceled it, but I was so put off by the experience. It's there's they could have made that contact with me.
Yes.
It would have cost 10%.
You were willing to do it. You went through all the steps.
I went through all the steps, and I would have left it on there. And then 2 weeks from now, they could have shot me an offer and be like, "Hey, we saw you on the podcast. Noticed you could probably run a little bit more. Here's some cool running shoes." Like, I don't know how it works, but again, they could market to me.
Yeah.
And they dropped the ball by not letting me. Like the coupon code should have been universal. Like, when you do a trick, don't beat people up on the fine print. Like, it just totally defeats the purpose. And now,
don't make it difficult.
No.
You know what I mean, like, because people, like you said, you've got an experience from that, and that's gonna determine whether you're gonna do business with them.
Yeah, and again, maybe I'm still gonna go back to them in the future, but I canceled immediately the text message service.
Sure.
So I'm out of that direct line of communication. They had access to my phone for 20 minutes and could reach out to me with a good offer, and they failed.
Yeah, and so on the texting thing, so Gen Z, actually there's the poll says there's 64% of Gen Z want to get specials and discounts text to their phone. 64%.
Wow. Okay, that's
So, listen, if you're not figuring out how to get on text messaging, they want it. I mean, more than half of them want it.
No.
So, I think that's a big deal too. And then social media channels, just going to the next level. We talked about pictures of food. We talked about those things, like stuff's being shared. Have a good representation on social media. I'm not saying you got to be the coolest social media account out there, but have some representation so that when they take the picture of the food, they could tag you in the picture. They could tag the location. They can do those things so that when people see that hopefully good plated presentation, they go, wow, that's great. Where is that? And it's right there. You know what I mean?
For sure.
You're not on Instagram? Sorry. I mean, they're typing in the location, but they can't find you. Like, you know what I mean? So it just becomes a little bit more of a nuisance and doesn't complete that marketing effort.
I agree. No, people are put off by that. Again, it's like table stakes. It's just like it's the bare minimum of being out there. Like, you at least should have that.
Yeah.
You've got to be on the platform. Again, whether or not you consistently post and have a ton of great content, that's the next level up. But you need to have at least the basics.
Yeah, you got to have the presence, no question. So let's talk about the workforce a little bit.
Okay.
Gen Z in the workforce. They how we're going to reach this? How we're going to reach them? You know what I mean? We talked about this. Through social media, whether it's TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or whatever it is. Like, we've got to have presence on there, and we got to have a little bit of a. And when I say presence, like, you got to have your reputation showing on that. You know what I mean? So how are we marketing to them? Because as they're consumers and they buy in as consumers, they can also buy in as employees as well. Because if they have a cool dining experience and the people in there, they seem motivated, they seem like they've got a vision and are making an impact. Like, as they dine there, when they're 14, 15, 16, 17, like, and they go into the workforce, they're gonna potentially want to work there as well. So that whole that kind of interloops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is this a cool, fun, interesting place to eat? And is that a fun, interesting place to work?
Right.
And that's, I think you kind of constantly need to cultivate that. And to your point on the social media, that is also where they're going to look. I mean, they're not probably going to go to your website first. They're going to go to your social media,
right.
and what that's going to be their first stop. Now, again, you're building that content on someone else's platform, so you always want to have a good website and have that as something you own. But again, that content is going to be out there, and you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Ideal job traits I looked into, the 3 top ideal job traits for Gen Z. They're looking for recognition,
Okay.
flexibility, and team atmosphere.
All right.
Okay, so I thought that was interesting because it does parallel a little bit on the millennials with the recognition and different things like that, but in the team atmosphere. But it's really, as we talked about in that other episode, it's forcing us to be better leaders as restaurateurs, to say, like, what kind of culture and team environment are we aspiring to so that we can actually have these people want to work in our places.
And I think that's going to separate us as local independent restaurateurs apart from the national chains, because the national chains, a lot of times, as we all know, the food's coming in a bag and they're sous vide it, and they pour it out, and you're like, well, you can't take out the green peppers because that's why it comes in the bag.
Right.
So, like, if we can, like, eliminate that people are not robots and they're human beings, and we care and love about them and want to grow with them, that's important to us.
Yeah, and so to go back to, we talked about in the millennials one about the recognition and the feedback that they want. Well, they're saying 46% want daily and weekly feedback on the Gen Z, so that's not going away. That's,
No.
That's something that's almost half of them are looking for daily and weekly feedback from leadership, from the restaurant team, to do that. As far as industries go with Gen Z, the restaurants have grown from 2000 to 2017. That industry in interest has grown 5% in that segment. So they're actually 5% more interested in that industry in a 15-year time frame. You know what I mean? So that's positive for the restaurants.
That's
like,
great.
It's actually, they're saying that the top characteristics when they look at Gen Z and they look at what they think of restaurant to work in a restaurant, the top characteristic is it's a good place to have a first job, okay, and that it requires a wide variety of skills, okay,
Which is true.
It absolutely does. But think about this. Here, I want to round this off. Is at the bottom was that the impression was that the people don't have any other skills, and that's where they need to work. Okay, and it requires little or no training. So that was kind of like, so the top most positive and the top
Oh,
most
really?
negative.
Okay.
But think about what that means to your restaurant when somebody comes in and has an experience. When they experience well-trained, polite, disciplined, great team, take pride in the work, and they experience that, they're probably more apt to think, wow, you have to have a variety of skills. Wow, you have to, do those things on the top. But when you come in and the staff's disheveled and not organized, and you can tell there's no really leadership or lack of leadership, like they're probably thinking like, well, yeah, anybody could work here. Like, well, there's no pride in that thing. So it really comes down to like, what are you showing them when they walk into your restaurant as a consumer? What are you showing them?
That's true.
Are you showing your best foot forward? Because that's only going to help you in the employment end. You know what I mean?
No, I agree.
So that's a little bit. I mean, we'd love to hear, some of your takes. Obviously, always check us out on restauranttopia.com. Go in there and leave us a message with any, anything you think that you can add to this conversation, because we could talk a lot about this generational research. It's crazy. And then also in the show notes, we're going to put some stuff. There's some great articles from the NRA. There's actually a nice package called Putting Gen Z to Work in Restaurants from the National Restaurant Association. So a lot of these statistics, were from there. And also the Center for Generational Kinetics. Jason Dorsey is the president there. Is a great speaker. If you check him out on YouTube or some of his TED Talks, you'll see kind of a lot of the stuff we're talking about. So we'll put some of that stuff in the show notes so you guys can check it out.
Definitely. Check out restauranttopia.com. A ton of resources there for your local independent restaurant. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the next episode.
Big shout out to Bold Food and Drink in the Cleveland Flats here for hosting this episode of Restauranttopia. Great place here in Cleveland to eat and drink, fine dining, and also for any holiday parties. They got a beautiful back room, which we're sitting in right now. And so I encourage you to get down here and check it out.